Back, boxing fans, to another late night boxing talk with Sean and Lily. So again, people lying, talking out their ass, proving that you can't listen to them because nothing they say is true or valid. By pointing out the truth about how Canelo Alvarez fighting Bud Crawford is a huge fight, a far bigger fight than a David Benavidez fight, Bud Crawford's legacy far bigger than David Benavidez. This is just fact. Fine if people preferred a David Benavidez as an opponent. That's your prerogative. You could hope and ask for whoever you want. But we can understand why the Canelo Alvarez Bud Crawford fight is happening, because it's a huge event, right? So much so it's going to be on Netflix. Would Canelo versus David Benavidez have been on Netflix? Fuck no. It wouldn't have been. And ask yourself this. If David Benavidez was really that interested in making this fight, why did he walk away when he was in position to get the WBC mandatory? A month before that was going to pop up, he chose to move to 175 pounds and act as if he was chasing undisputed. Well, now he was given an opportunity for undisputed, and what did he do? He walked away from that to do what? Get an email title that really isn't worth the fucking the leather it's fucking printed on, right? And I'm not hating on him, but this is typically what the PBC does all the time. They don't want to make friends with people. They don't want to play nice and give boxing fans the fights they want. When Canelo Alvarez was part of the PBC, how come people weren't critical of PBC and Al Heyman for not fucking pushing the David Benavidez Canelo Alvarez fight? Of course they won't, because these same people have no problem with everything the PBC does and historically has always done. And that's really the problem with these people. They're full of shit, and they've always been full of shit, right? Like, it's obvious to anybody that watches boxing that Canelo Alvarez's legacy is excellent, future Hall of Fame, maybe one of the best, if not the best, Mexican fighters of all time. You don't have to like him. I'm not a huge Canelo Alvarez fan. Stylistically, he's not really the kind of fighter that I prefer to watch, right? I liked Golovkin. Golovkin was my fighter, and I was picking him to obviously beat Canelo Alvarez. Unfortunately, the way Vegas and all American judges go, we see that that's not the way things are supposed to be, not the way things worked out. But you don't hear me bitching, moaning, and crying about it. I moved on. And now when people go on and consistently now hate on Canelo Alvarez, even though they all were hoping he'd beat Golovkin back in the day, right, using him to push their hate narrative, now, of course, they did the same thing they did with Teofimo Lopez. They were pushing Teo to beat Lomachenko. Once that happened, then, of course, they did the same thing with Lopez that they did with Canelo. This is the same thing now they're doing with David Benavidez. These guys don't support David Benavidez. They're just using him to hopefully get a victory against Canelo Alvarez. And when that happens, they're going to be just as quick to forget David Benavidez as they were Teofimo Lopez, just as fast as they were to start shitting on Canelo Alvarez. These guys are race bait channels that always just want to push racial narratives, right? The truth is, nobody is against the Canelo Alvarez-David Benavidez fight. But up until 2024, David Benavidez literally had done fucking nothing. He had multiple opportunities to fight for unification. He blew it. The PBC never wanted it. They never put him in position to do it. Kind of like they do with Tank Davis. Kind of like they did with, obviously, fucking Deontay Wilder. Unless they can make in-house unification fights, chances are they're probably not going to make the fights, right? When they do, generally their fighters get beat, smashed, destroyed, as we've seen on multiple occasions. It's ironic because I remember arguing with this guy when he was saying Caleb Plant was a far better fighter than David Benavidez, and I was defending David Benavidez. And this guy was all over Caleb Plant's jockstrap. Now, of course, he's forgot, of course, against Caleb Plant because he's no longer relevant, right? But let's remember, the person that beat him first was Canelo Alvarez in a unification fight. Something that David Benavidez could have done well before Canelo Alvarez. he could have been the unified champion at 168 pounds, forcing Canelo Alvarez to fight him for those titles. He was offered a fight from Turki Al-Sheikh, right, on a card with Benavidez, him thus taking on the winner of that for undisputed. But then he walked away from that, said, oh, he's not interested in fighting in Saudi Arabia. He's a Vegas fighter. But it's not about you not being interested in fighting in Saudi. The point is, do you want undisputed 175-pound title? If you do, then here it is on a fucking silver platter for you, right? All you got to do is agree to it. But of course, being a PBC fighter, it's no surprise he took the shortcut, the route to fucking anonymity, which is making him fight who? Maybe he's going to get Smith. If he doesn't get Smith, God only knows who that fucking guy's going to fight. Because literally, there's nobody else for him. Anthony Yard, Smith, or one of the two monsters. And he already showed you he's not interested in challenging them. That's why he's already talking about moving up to cruiserweight, right? This guy has exposed himself consistently. And consistently still clout chases Canelo Alvarez, even though now he's at 175 pounds. Oh, but Canelo needs to go to 175 to face him because some reason he is relevant. When has he been relevant? Since when? This guy is lucky that he's even on Ring Magazine's pound-for-pound top 10 because most hardcore boxing fans don't put him on any pound-for-pound list. The guy is a one-weight world champion, has never unified, was elevated by email title to 175 pounds. Far from a stellar resume, far from stellar accommodations. But let's be real. If he would have signed a fight deal with the PBC to fight Canelo Alvarez, I would have been all for it. I wouldn't be against it. I like great fights. If he would have fought on the undercard of Bivol Beterbiev and then fought the winner for undisputed, and then the fight was made between him and Canelo Alvarez for a 175 undisputed world title, I would have been super stoked for that fight to happen and probably would have favored him over Canelo Alvarez at that weight at that time. But he shows you he's not interested in that. He will continue to use Canelo Alvarez's name to try to build his brand, but then consistently go on to not do anything outside of call out Canelo Alvarez. But you got guys like this, these liars, these fucking fake boxing fans that want to go out there and literally discredit everything that Canelo Alvarez does. Yet hype up fighters that are mediocre and never done anything in their careers. And we know why they're riding David Benavidez' jockstrap. It's not because they're David Benavidez fans. Because we know that ain't true, even though he's American, and Americans should support Americans. But with these guys, we know it doesn't matter if you're American. You got to be Black American. If you're not Black American, we're not really going to roll with you. Sorry, that's just the way it goes. Of course, everyone else has to roll with the Black American or they're racist. Because again, that's the way it goes. The blatant racial double standard has been something we've been watching ever since Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. And it's the same today as it was then. Nothing's changed. You still have these ridiculous fucking so-called boxing fans that lie out their ass, consistently are inconsistent, and are hypocrites. Like, literally, you can pick Bud Crawford to beat Canelo, but then you're undermining the fight by acting as if Canelo Alvarez is cherry-picking him and not fighting David Benavidez. You can't make this shit up. These guys will go to such extents to fucking make excuses so that if Crawford does lose, then they can give Benavidez exactly zero credit and say, oh, he cherry-picked a smaller fighter. He cherry-picked a smaller fighter. You know, literally we know what's going on. These are the tactics we've seen time and time again. If this was the black fighter and the other fighter was coming up, you wouldn't hear the same thing. It wouldn't be the same kind of narrative that was being pushed by these guys. There'd be a whole new perspective, right? Oh, challenging, trying to be great, legacy, Hall of Fame, the best fighting the best. Like, if you're a boxing fan, the only thing you should really be concerned about is great fights being made. Not worried about what fucking promoter is making them. and all this other shit. It's not our responsibility as fans to worry about fucking weights, ring sizes, fucking what gloves they use. Who gives a shit about any of that? Why are you worrying about it? How much money they get paid? I don't care. Like, it's irrelevant to me how much money anyone's getting paid. I hope they get paid well, because of course they deserve it, right? That's the end of it. That's all that matters. I don't want to see boxers taken advantage of, but I'm not worrying about how much money they get paid. I don't care who promotes these fights. I mean, UFC, Dana fucking, what's his face? Dana Harvey, Dana whoever is promoting this fight between Crawford and Canelo Alvarez. I don't care. It could be Heyman. It could be fucking Floyd. It could be Dana. I mean, really, what does it matter? The reality is this is a huge fight. The biggest fight of 2025. And the fact that you'd rather fucking push narratives, even though you make videos trying to act as if, oh, you're so fucking comfortable and so hyped thinking that Bud Crawford's going to win. Well, if that's the case, why do you keep making fucking excuses? Why do you keep harping on the fucking weight? Right? You're not focusing on Crawford's longer arms. You're not focusing on Crawford's faster feet and faster hands. All those things aren't an issue. You don't care about that. And the fact that really they're the same height. But what matters is the fact that Canelo Alvarez is thicker. But yet, this only applies because we know Crawford is black. You hope he wins. If he loses, you're setting up all the excuses in the world to give no credit to Canelo Alvarez. Unlike you, I don't know who's going to win. I talked about how I think Crawford could win months ago, and nothing's changed. Really, I have to see how he looks on weigh-in and when he gets in the ring, see what his legs look like. Does he have those stiff Tommy Hearn, Deontay Wilder legs? Or does he still have some athleticism left in him? Because if he does, I would favor him to win. Not because he's going to be moving around the ring and running in circles, but because he's going to be able to control distance with his feet and his reach, very similar to what Dimitri Bivol did. We saw Dimitri Bivol beat Canelo. Bud Crawford can learn from that fight and go on and win this fight. For Canelo Alvarez, we know that he's got low punch output. What he's going to rely on is being able to counter punch, land heavy body shots, slow Crawford down, eventually get him to the ropes where hopefully his power will be too much for Crawford, and eventually he will stop him. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. That's the fun of fights being made. We will see which fighter is better on fight nights. I don't need to make excuses. I don't need to fucking plan in case, a fighter that I support loses, because in truth, the fighter I like is Bud Crawford. I always liked him more than Canelo Alvarez, but we'll see who wins.